You cut him off mid-sentence and you hear your voice sharper than it needed to be. You rush to correct one phrase, one word that nobody but you even noticed. Your mouth goes dry. You start explaining that you just wanted to clarify. The words stretch longer than the corrected thought. Your eyes stay sunk into the table, into your notebook, into your hands. You apologize, even though no one complained. People are quiet, nod, move back to the topic, and you keep holding on to your little remark like a hangnail on your finger and you can't let it go. That sticky edge of the badge again, snagging at your neck, as if keeping you right where you are so you definitely don't disappear. After that conversation, it'll be harder to pretend it's all just a love of accuracy or just how you are, and you'll notice more clearly the moment when you go back to a place where nobody's been for a long time, but act like you're still standing exactly there. In the meeting room, a colleague calmly talks about the project. There's no tension in his voice. People nod, someone writes on the flip chart, the smell of a cheap marker hangs in the air. The air conditioner hums. He says a sentence with one word off. Not a big mistake, not a disaster, just an inaccuracy. And you snap your head up and interrupt. Your voice comes out a little louder than you wanted. You carefully change the wording, say the correct version. For a second, it's too quiet. Your mouth goes dry. The edge of the badge sticks to the skin under your collar, making it hard to take a deeper breath. Someone nods, yeah, great, and is ready to move on. But you open your mouth again. I'm not nitpicking, just so there are no misunderstandings later. You launch into a long justification. You speak longer than the original point lasted. You don't look at anyone. You cling to every word until that light, unspoken awkwardness freezes in the room. The meeting agenda moves on. The manager takes the floor again. Someone jokes, someone argues. Outside, things return to work rhythm, but it's like an invisible camera stays on you. You sit a little straighter than you need to. Your shoulders are frozen, like someone photographed you and forgot to say, relax. Your hands go back to fiddling with the edge of the badge, trying to shift it, even though it sticks to the same spot. Half the lines pass by. Your remark runs in circles in your head. How that sounded. Who glanced how? Did you put the stress on the right syllable? When you started to defend yourself. The memory that remains is not the whole meeting, but those 20 seconds. It feels like everything now sits there. Who you are, how people see you, what they'll think. Someone nearby flips through a notebook. Someone gets distracted by their phone. You nod in the right places, but you're still in those 24 seconds, in your I just clarified. The same logic shows up in other rooms. An online call, squares of faces, someone in half dark, someone in a kitchen. A colleague uses a term out of place. You unmute and slip in gently, it's more like this. The person calmly says, oh, yes, right, thanks. But you already add, I'm not trying to be picky, just so we're on the same page, and again, a few extra sentences that nobody needs except you. Evening, family dinner. A relative retells an old story and mixes up the dates a bit. You correct him, specify the year, the place, the order. He laughs. Oh, you always remember everything. Waves it off, but you've got the same tail up. I'm not a bore, and instead of taking a bite of salad and leaving it, you start explaining why you said it, apologizing to people who didn't even realize they should be afraid of you. Friends meet up. Bar, plates, background conversations. Someone tells news and slips up. You weave in with the exact number, the right wording, a link to a source. No one argues. Someone even says, good you corrected it. But you don't stop at that short corrected. You stretch the moment, adding, I don't do that in a toxic way, I just like things tidy. You start smoothing something that nobody tried to sharpen. In the supermarket, the cashier miscounts the change. You calmly show where the mistake is. The receipt rustles, bills get sorted, everything's fixed. And you still say, not that I don't trust you, just better to catch it right away. In a chat, you send a message clarifying the schedule and immediately tack on a few lines. I'm not nitpicking, just so we don't get confused. No hard feelings. On social media, you spot a tiny inaccuracy in someone's post, point it out politely, and then send 2 more messages trying to convince the person not to be offended, as if the comment was a grenade, not a line in a feed. On the surface, there's always a handy explanation. You like it precise. Words in their places, dates not mixed up. On the screen, tables, aligned columns, shelves with sorted folders, presentations without typos, comments on docs with neat edits. It's easy to say about yourself, I'm for quality. That clears up a lot. It's clear why you step in, why you notice what others miss. And behind that same explanation, it's easy to lose another side, that odd moment when, after a normal clarification, you suddenly have to defend yourself as if you'd done something terrible and everyone's about to shame you. Then everything seems to freeze. A weekday. People file into various meeting rooms, clip on badges, fix collars, someone signs the next flip chart, the familiar marker smell becomes background. Cups of water, slow sips, short pauses. Someone clarifies something, someone cuts someone off, a light awkwardness. Rewind. A new room, new people, the same gestures, badges, markers, water, small corrections of phrases, short, oh yeah, thanks, little pauses, another meeting, another chat, another, I'm not nitpicking, the same move of fingers to the neck, the same dry mouth. The shots start to blur. Everything sounds and looks uniform, like one endless meeting where everyone's a bit more careful than they need to be and a bit more defensive than any real reason calls for. Gradually, details start to appear in these identical scenes that weren't visible before. Colleagues begin to give you the floor in advance when it comes to disputed wording. Well, let's ask him, he knows better. Said as respect, but there's also a small relief in their voices. Let him say it and let him explain himself. A manager, discussing ideas, holds his gaze for a split second before letting you speak, as if checking the discussion won't get pulled into another precise correction. Friends at gatherings quickly skip topics where you usually correct something, numbers, terms, events. A story gets cut off mid-sentence, and everyone seems to step aside together, avoiding the tight spots. Around you, an invisible zone forms. People respect that you'll notice a mistake, and at the same time, they try not to get into areas after which you'll be stuck defending what you didn't do. And then, in one of the familiar shots, time seems to slow and roll back. The same meeting room, the same people, the same marker. But we're watching you a couple of seconds before the colleague says his wrong line. Nobody has aired yet. There's nothing threatening in the air, and your jaw tenses. You hold your breath for a fraction. Your shoulders lift slightly and stay there. Your gaze slides across faces, checking where it might come from. The colleague starts to speak, and even before his mistake, you fall back into the old state that's not actually here. Inside, the script has already turned on. They're going to say it wrong. Then they'll think this. Then they'll ask me about that. And your future interrupting voice, it's not an answer to his sentence. It grows out of the place you returned to in advance. First, you're in that old spot where once a mistake really did get you in trouble, and from there, you make your just clarified and the usual defense. After that, you notice even more inverted moments. A neutral meeting, nobody pressing on anyone. But the second someone takes the floor, your fingers are already clenching under the table, a nail digging into your palm. At a calm dinner, while the conversation hasn't gone anywhere, you're already scanning faces and asking yourself inwardly, where's dangerous here? A harmless chat message comes in, a normal question, even with an emoji, and your heart beats faster for a moment, as if someone already accused you between the lines. Only after these early, invisible moves does everything else appear. The intervene, the precise wording, the long apology. From the outside, it looks like a habit, loving precision and then smoothing it over. Inside, it's more like continuing an old scene that starts early and dictates how you'll say even a simple line now. Then your gaze shifts somewhere else. At first, nothing to do with flip charts and terms. A minibus or the subway. You get on and pick a seat so you won't bump anyone, won't make anyone move. You don't ask, excuse me, one extra time. In a lecture hall, you know you have a question, but you don't raise your hand. You don't want to distract, hold things up, butt in with your clarifications. At an event, you avoid certain people whose conversations will likely hit a topic where you'll either notice an inaccuracy and have to step in, or swallow it and replay it in your head for hours. Here, nobody is trying to formulate anything wrong. Nobody is waiting for your fix, but your body gives you the usual signs. A small tension, a throat already caught just in case, a quick inner calculation of where it's safer not to poke your head out and not to be first. At the same time, the people around you adapt a little. Loved ones rely on your reliable accuracy and avoid it at the same time. At work, they call you when they need numbers checked, wording checked, texts checked. You become the one who will notice if something's off. That's useful, that's handy. But those same people in informal talks cut out topics where you're likely to start gently correcting without even realizing they're avoiding them. Among friends, they joke, "He'll correct us now." But more often, they tell stories without the details you could latch onto. In family conversations, you're asked, "What's the right way?" And then the subject is changed as soon as you answer. The role is strange, needed, useful, precise, and at the same time standing slightly apart from the ordinary freedom to speak roughly, to make mistakes, and not explain every move.
Sometimes you hold back. A meeting goes on, someone speaks inaccurately, you hear it, but you stay quiet. You sit quieter than usual. Outside, it looks perfect. See, you didn't nitpick, didn't interfere, didn't create the awkwardness. Only inside, nothing's gone anywhere. Your jaw stays clenched, the same dryness in your throat, just no phrase comes out. The defensive script still runs. You've already imagined what you'd say, how they'd react, where you'd have to explain later. And after the meeting, on your way home, you replay in your head the non-existent episode of intervention as if it did happen, and now you must deal with the consequences. The only difference is you're the only witness. And then later, again at a corporate meeting, a shift happens. Everything follows the usual path. Someone speaks, you tense up in advance, your body falls back into that old place. Dry mouth, the same sticky badge pressing on your neck. Inside, there's a ready phrase, a ready correction, a ready apology to follow. But this time, something in the movement breaks halfway. You still notice the inaccuracy, you still feel the push to intervene. Maybe you even say one short corrective word. But you don't start the long defensive monologue. You leave a pause. You don't cover your line with layers of, "I didn't mean to offend," and "I just like things tidy." The room reacts softer than those old scenes living inside you. Someone calmly continues the thought, someone nods and moves on. Nobody raises a voice, nobody rolls their eyes, nothing collapses. And you suddenly notice how strange it is not to preemptively apologize for something that didn't happen. Later, not in the meeting room and not in a crowd, but in a quieter space, it becomes possible to name what used to hide behind talk of character and perfectionism. It's not about loving neat phrasing, and it's not only about the habit of explaining yourself. It's living like the old reality still runs every new conversation, every room, every chat. Like that then, where a mistake really did get you hit, yelled at, humiliated, or left, still stands behind your back and whispers how to speak, how to step in, how to defend yourself. You enter a new situation already from there, in advance, and do here what made sense there. And you cling to the past not out of some special sentimentality, but because it's easier not to admit that things are different now and that other rules have been in effect for a long time.